Listen up, Democrats. You are fake news. Saying lies and facts. Save our democracy from right-wing hypocrisy. Keep our integrity. Embrace our diversity. Whenever we're down, we always come back. So listen up, Democrats.
Hello, welcome to Progressive Oregon, a weekly engagement broadcast on progressive issues in Oregon. My name is Larry Taylor, and I'm here today with my co-host, Betsy Cunningham. If you would like to ask questions during the show, go to Uphill Media, the Uphill Media channel on YouTube, and type your questions into the chat window. Betsy will do her best to relay them to us, and we will get them answered. Today's guest is Brian Heath. We will be discussing how he applies his talents to organizing groups and doing his part to elect Bernie Sanders. Welcome, Brian. How are you today?
Hey, Larry. Hey, guys. Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Oh, sure. No, hey, and thank you. Everyone should know how awesome Larry is, how much work he does, and specifically for my project. Wouldn't be where we're at today without his help. So thank you very much, Larry.
Oh, you're welcome. So tell us how you got involved doing this. And you started way back in the last campaign.
Yeah, in 15, I started just making some artwork for the, related to the Sanders campaign. And then being here in Oregon, but traveling back to Ohio, some of the people I knew from Ohio were already with the campaign in Iowa. And they gave me contact information for some of the offices. So I called and showed them some of the work that I had done for Bernie and then for previous campaigns. And then they're like, hey, when can you be here? We want these huge signs. We've already got people calling and asking for signs, And so right after the first debate, like the next day, I think it was, we started driving Highway 20 back to Iowa, and then wound up in the office in Des Moines. And that previous picture there, that's in the back. The little loading dock area in the back. So where all the serious business was being taken care of in the front in the state office and all, in the back was like the playground with some guy painting and with his golden retriever listening to tunes.
So your work has evolved into actually an organizing tool. Did you do that back in Iowa in 2016?
Basically what happened is, it's a very visual thing. And when people see it, particularly in the rural areas, which was the emphasis of the signs, and then you're like, oh, wow, there's a supporter. And we have stories of, people writing letters or stopping and, that's how they got connected to the campaign was finding other Bernie supporters. And, we did it in Iowa, Ohio, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Nebraska, Wyoming, here in Oregon, down in California, just all over the place. Yeah.
So what's cool about the signs is that they look handmade and they really represent that there's a lot of love and commitment and passion that has gone into the creation of them. But they're not amateurish, but you let people who are volunteers do the artwork itself. So how do you pull that off?
Well, again, since it's an organizing tool, and we're attempting to get as many people involved as possible, and my experience just from being a kid was it's just fun to do, And usually when people see what's up when they come to an event and you're there doing something, they gravitate towards that activity. And the main focus of it is to show people, hey, this is how you can do this yourself, And you can cut templates out of poster board, you can go to the library and use the copier to, blow up pictures to make them big enough for your signs and all. A lot of times when we're doing the signs, people, I'll just give them a brush and they'll stand there and hold a brush against the plywood, and it looks like they're painting it, and they can take a picture and put it on their social media and, hey, we're at the Bernie Sanders campaign, and hey, check it out. Yeah, we're having fun, And these are the kind of people that you meet when you hang out with the Bernie crowd. They have fun, they're smart, they're real nice. When we show up on their property to do some painting, they invite us into their home. They prepare us food they've grown on their property. So it's very interactive. Very much want to have, when you see it, that a human being made it rather than they just purchased it somewhere.
So our fifth slide in the deck looks like it was an article in the Washington Post, and it says at the top, Wisconsin represents a phenomenon that can undermine Hillary Clinton. What is the story behind this picture?
I found that a couple of weeks back and was like, yeah, they were ahead of the game on that one, because is there the date on that? That was before Wisconsin had their primary, and that is in the office in Milwaukee. And I was in Madison by that time, working and putting together stuff for their office and their events. And they sent me this picture that they're like, hey, the guys from the Washington Post were here. And so I think that's when they were kind of getting a sense that, Bernie was, actually like making an impact and actually, lighting some fires and getting stuff done. And I was down in Indiana when Wisconsin had their primaries. And I think Bernie won like every county but one, something like that, And I was in Ohio when Michigan had their primary, and no one, it was, if you remember that, just out of the blue, Bernie won Michigan, and people were just stunned, And so this was a couple of weeks later when they got into the, hey, something's really happening here part.
So the next slide looks like it's one of your signs used as a background, and the caption says Andrea Mitchell covered how to caucus video on MSNBC. Was that the extent of it, that they did the interview with your sign in the background?
Well, the picture there is from the video they shot in the office in Des Moines. And that's our good friend, Pete D'Alessandro. Awesome man. He's hired again on the campaign. He's like a senior advisor to the campaign for the state of Iowa. Also a Raider fan. So anybody in California, you should know who Pete is. Has a real cool, I don't know if I sent you the image of the Raider logo with Bernie on it. It says Burners instead of Raiders.
That's a knock on Pete right there. I'm sorry. Jesus, Pete.
Yeah.
Pete is a great guy. And Scott Galinda's everybody, friend, used to know Pete, and we've talked to him and we've interviewed him actually. But the Raiders thing, wow, that's bad.
Yeah, because I didn't get it either, because he's like from Chicago or something. Yeah, so So we had a little bit of chat about that. But back to the main thing here. Is they came in and shot this video so you could go online and watch it, and it explains how to caucus in the state of Iowa. So it's a little instructional video. It's fun. It's, I don't know, 2-3 minutes long. Involves a bunch of the staff. So it was a good, fun project for the kids in the office. Because, there's a lot of people that were not engaged, had not caucused before, and also they wanted them to understand the process. So when they went on caucus night, they would have an understanding of what they're supposed to do. Or some of them you stand on one side of the room, some of them you have a piece of paper, stuff like that.
Sure. Well, no, listen, the video was cool and all that, but doing a video back, because basically what you had them, did you paint all that or did they help paint that? Because that's a set background. And that's what's really awesome, is that you're providing a professional set background that candidates could use, that the caucus, and that's expensive. That's a lot. So, the video, whatever, that's a set background.
Well, and then really what that is just a riff on The Birth of Venus, if you're familiar with that classic painting with the naked lady and the seashell. So Bernie's the naked lady and the seashell. Where the eagle that's the eagle from the Iowa flag. Okay. And there's like two figures over there. And then where the Statue of Liberty is some other chick with like a blanket to give the naked lady and the seashell.
Nice. I'm sorry we don't have a full picture of that, and Pete's in the way.
You got much of that.
We really should get a full blown of that. That one's nice.
Yeah.
So you use art references from the last 400 years and infusing the meaning of your work.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I just did a piece Friday night, a chalk piece in Albany for the lake or the Lights for Liberty.
Oh, we have that coming up, and it's gorgeous. Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get into the 2020 stuff.
Okay.
The next slide is an awesome, I mean, it's such a beautiful picture. It's of a Bernie sign in a field, and I believe this is Iowa, and this was in Politico.
Yep. The coolest thing, man. I'm just like cruising through my Twitter feed. You know, it's like the end of January. The caucuses are coming up, and there's this picture, and I'm like, hey, man, there's my sign. And they had a picture from every candidate in the race. The picture of Hillary was actually of Bill Clinton, like in a cafe shaking someone's hand. All the rest of the campaigns was a picture of the candidate, except for Bernie's, and that's the picture they used to represent Bernie's campaign. So high honor, like framed picture of that, like in the house, you know, like every member of my family has a copy of that. Yeah, and I sent the picture to the fella, and if you can see it good enough, that's the same format, except for Iowa replaces the word Oregon. And this is on the north side of Highway 20 in Iowa, which people that live in Oregon probably know 20 runs through Oregon. And there's a number of Bernie signs on 20 in Oregon. So it was really neat to have one in Iowa. Actually, there was two. You can't see the other one. But when I sent the picture to the fella, and I didn't say anything, you know, I didn't put it in context or whatever. I just sent that picture, and he just assumed it was someone else's property, that someone else had a sign in Iowa just like his. And so when I stopped by on my way through the state again and talked to him, and I was like, "Oh no way, dude, that's yours. That's your pad." Because his house and barn are actually to the right of where that sign is, so you don't see them in the photograph. So he didn't really like recognize the property or whatever.
Yeah, it is such a beautiful picture.
So yeah. You know, stuff like that happens. I can't really explain it. It's just awesome, you know, to see something like that. Yeah. And it's spelled Iowa properly. So that's kind of a big deal for me.
Big props.
Yeah.
And then the next slide looks like it's Bernie speaking at a campaign office or something. And another one of your signs.
That's the Birth of Venus one. Yeah. You know, fortunately, there's a number of pictures of Bernie in front of stuff that I painted. I found out at one point, like maybe February or so, that when they did have someone come to an office when Bernie was going to speak, they just automatically chose where I had painted. You know, some of his murals on walls, some of the signs, whatever. But whatever, they would just like line their cameras up, you know, and use that as a backdrop. There's just numerous. I stayed up all night one night painting a backdrop in Cleveland, and Bernie had a press conference there the next day. When we were in Wisconsin, we were making signs and handing them out to people that are like on either side of the stage. Specific images like Bernie with the cheese head, you know, so you could tell from the picture that he's in Wisconsin, you know, stuff like that. So yeah, just a couple of dozen probably photos. Some of them Jane, you know, standing in front of stuff I painted, you know. Yeah, so just awesome.
There was also a large sign in the back of the room in Portland, Oregon, on Broadway. Did you do that sign as well?
Portland, let's see. I know by the time we got out here to Oregon, things were pretty much well established. Portland office, and you know, I'm not a native Oregon guy. You know, I've been in Oregon on and off the last 5 years or something, and so I pretty much figured that they got artists and got it under control up there. So we just took some smaller pieces up there. And a number of folks I've met at other states were run out of that office, so they displayed some of that. But all the stuff that was painted on the walls and all was already there. Yeah, and yeah, beautiful. You know, that's what I would want to to do when I left the house in 15. You know, that's the kind of thing we're looking to do anyway. So it made sense that Portland already had it like that. Yeah.
So now we're in 2019 and we're gearing up for this election. You've had a burst of activity over the past month and a half.
Thank you, Larry. You're involved with that. Thank you very much. Yes.
This is a slide from one of the 4th of July parades.
Correct. Yeah. There's several. Yeah. I think there was 3. This one's in Lane County. We also have one in Corvallis, and then Independence, which is just across the river from Salem. And they all had either a truck or this one's the trailer with signs. Yeah. The people in Lane County, actually this coming Saturday, we're going to be running around down in Lane County, the Eugene area, primarily installing signs. We have like 6, 7 locations. And this one, if you look in the upper left-hand corner above the Bernie logo there, you can see the little sign on the sign. They like auctioned that one off. They raised money for our project. And they had their meeting yesterday. Someone, they drew a name or whatever, and someone won that. So that's going to be one of them we'll be putting up next Saturday. So if you look at the Lane County site for Bernie Sanders, we'll have information, kind of a schedule, maybe some directions, whatever. You don't have to come the whole day. It takes maybe half an hour. How long were we at your place, John, when we put up the sign at your place?
Not long, but that's because I get irritated fast, kicked everybody out. But I mean, it was like an hour, right? And I mean, it didn't take very long. You had a full crew there. You dug holes, you planted it, and so far nobody shot at it or stole this one.
Yeah.
Good. You're more civilized down in central part of the state.
No, don't say that at all. I'm surrounded by gunfire. Okay, so.
The next slide is Rural Oregon for Bernie, and I think this was the group that painted it, right? Is that the story behind this one?
Yeah. Well, this is on a property again, a Highway 20 here in Oregon, and our delivery guy that we got at some point. Maybe if there's a picture of his truck. He's been just awesome. And he's had the opportunity to take signs further afield, down to Bandon. Took a couple of signs down there. He took a couple up last week and met with Larry up in Seaside.
Yeah, we're going to get to that one.
Yeah, and there's a story there, so stay tuned on that. Yeah, but it's all good. It's totally good. Yeah, yeah. And this is kind of like the classic format or whatever, very similar to the one that says rural Iowa. There was I made dozens of these just like that in 15 and 16. Rural Iowa, rural Ohio, rural whatever, for Bernie. Yeah. So
the next slide is really interesting because it's got the bird from the famous rally at the Moda Center in Portland, and it's got the flames representing burning for Bernie.
Yeah. I've used the flames. The previous one, the Rural Oregon one, there's a version of that where it doesn't say Rural Oregon and it just has like that burning with the flames. The float, it had that kind of image on it. And I'll talk about my dog here at some point. But his name was Iggy, and he was named after Jerome Iginla, who was the captain of the Calgary Flames. So NHL fans, Calgary Flames. So I've been painting flames for years, decades. And when Bernie came along, and I was like, "Oh, dude, you're like pitching to me, man," And so a lot of the offices, the windows had those big red flames on them. And that's what people would see was these big red and white flames, and they'd be like, "Hey, what's up?" And then they'd see the Bernie logo, and they're like, "Hey, it's a Bernie office," and then they would come in and we'd get them attached to the campaign, and, they're making phone calls and going out canvassing, and, doing the duty. Yeah. So
if we go ahead 2 slides, we'll come to a shot of Matt and his truck. And
there you go, man. That's our boy Matt right there, man. And see, there's the flames on top of the Bernie logo. That's the Pacific Ocean in the background. My buddy's back in Ohio watching this, man. Yeah, it's called an ocean. It's not a cornfield. Yeah. Yeah, but that's our big, cool delivery truck, and our buddy Matt. Yeah, and oh man, he's having more fun than I am probably. So yeah, he actually got to come up to Seaside and meet with Larry last Monday. Yeah, so I don't know if you have the pictures of the sign that we put up there. There's one.
Yeah, we're going to get to that story.
Yeah.
And the next slide is a close-up of this one, which is just so, I mean, it's just the symbolism and everything is just awesome. It's hard to argue with this unless you're, well, don't go into that.
Yeah. Well, and I used the In Corporate Socialism on a number of pieces in 16, and was very excited when Bernie came out with a definition of democratic socialism, you know, and put it in historical context and attached to FDR and Truman, and you know, establishing, basically defining the term democratic socialism. And because one of the things that we did a lot with the campaign was when folks would, you know, engage, and we were like, hey, how'd you hear about Bernie? You know, what do you like about him? You know, what's your main issue? Stuff like that. But when people were like, they didn't want socialism and all, and then, you know, and they're like, oh, we'll never be a socialist country. And we're like, no, we have been. Yeah, it's corporate socialism. Check it out, you know. And so now, like, that's kind of more out there in the open. And so if anyone want to talk smack about Bernie being a socialist, we're like, we have a text you can read to understand what he's saying, you know.
So the next one is very Oregon. You've got Bernie, and you have a pitchfork and a chicken and the flames.
Yeah, and the flames, yeah.
Which group was this?
So again, this is our buddy Matt. You can see him just to the left of the sign. Because what he does, one of the things he does is he sells firewood. And what does firewood do but burn? So go figure. But the logo for his firewood is it's the burn lot, or so it's kind of like wood. It's kind of like Woodstock, you know. And so if you replace the chicken with a dove and the pitchfork with a guitar, it's the Woodstock logo, right? And so the Field of Burn is in the same font as the Woodstock logo. And so they just wanted me to make it like a Bernie version. So I'm like, dude, it's a pitchfork. So obviously we'll just have Bernie hold the pitchfork, and then now there's some room for some flames on there. Yeah. And then, you know, we wrap it in the state of Oregon, and there you go, man. It's just part of how things work with this project is things just flow together like that. Yeah.
I just want to say that at this point where we are with the Trump administration, the pitchfork is absolutely appropriate. Thank you. Well done.
The next one I think is John's.
Yeah, this is in front of.
Right?
This is this is one they just put in front of. Oh, hang on, let me change the view there. Yeah, this one's in front of my place, and the neighbor that lives 2 houses down has made it clear that he hates it, so it's a success.
Hey,
So it's just
hey, that's how we know, man. Yeah, when you get that hate. Yeah. Well, and because like Matt, I talked with Matt because he's got driving around the truck with the signs and all, and you know, not everybody uses the same finger, you know, thumb, you know. And I'm like, just tell him, man, we eat your hate, dude. That's what makes us strong, man. You know. And Bernie said the same thing, like FDR. You know, it's like, yeah, you know, we know we're doing the right thing when, you know, people, the right people are hating us, man.
and I want to make this clear. This is thanks for blocking out my address. I didn't realize you did that. Not necessarily.
Oh yeah, I'm a trick like
that. That's Greta Thunberg. This was a custom. I asked for something environmental from Brian, and this was a custom design. So I just want to say that's fucking awesome, and thank you, Brian.
No, thank you, man, and thank you for the work that you've done in helping promote the project and all.
Many hands.
I got a list, man, and Matt's on there, Charles, Upfield Media, of course, Larry, any of the like our revolution groups. You know, the different counties for Bernie that have been promoting the project are hooking me up with folks that are interested in signs and all that. And to me, it's just very symbolic of like the kind of effort that it's top down, man. All starts with, of course, with Bernie, but it is just the kind of project that we're doing. There's the kind of people that we're talking about, promoting their kind of ideas and all that. Yeah.
Let's go two slides ahead. And tell us the story behind this one. So you got two signs: ends corporate socialism, and the more you learn, the more you burn.
Right. Yeah.
And a bunch of, and so who's in the shot, and how did these get created?
Yeah, these are the ones that went down to Bandon. So yeah, the end corporate socialism, and then the more you learn, the more you burn was on the other side of the truck from the previous shot. Yeah, and basically when I talked to the folks down there, and we're like, hey, what kind of message? Here's the imagery. So those two are kind of like templates. If you take the message off, basically there's a Bernie image, some form of the Bernie logo, and then there is your message or whatever your main issue or topic is. And so when I spoke with these folks, and we hear a lot of this, particularly in the rural areas, that it's real red here, there's a lot of Trump support here, whatever. So we went with these because, again, we're establishing that there is a socialism, it's corporate socialism, and that needs to end. And then the more you learn, the more you burn, and that just implies that the more you learn about Bernie, the more you'll like him. Yeah. And the video that we shot, Ash shot in 15, that's the final say, the last line in that video is, the more people learn about Bernie, because they didn't really know who he was back then, but the more you learn, the more you like him. So yeah.
The next two are two vertical signs. What's the story behind them?
Yeah. Yeah, the donkey. Yeah, that was fun, man. We made a number of those for different offices. Oh gosh, man, Indiana, Wisconsin, whatever. And we're like, yeah, these are like Bernie Dems, and the whole Bernie's not a real Dem. I would argue that Bernie is the real Dem. I'm not sure really who the rest of those candidates are or whatever. But that just visually, ties the Bernie image to the Dem donkey image. And then the sign on the right with the bird, can you blow that up a little bit, please, John? One of the gals down in Eugene, we're going to be installing that in her yard this coming Saturday. But the imagery there really is, if you look closely, you'll see there appears that there's a tree that's been heavily butchered, and that's to symbolize the tree of liberty. And then you look and you see that even after the harsh hacking it's taken, it's sprouting new life. It's coming back to life, sprouting new leaves and all. And then of course it's got the bird up on top, and then that circle could either be the sun or the moon. But if you see all them stars, that means that's the moon and it's nighttime. So the dawn's coming, and the tree of liberty is regenerating itself and attaching all that imagery to our candidate, Mr. Sanders.
And I'm sure every MAGA will completely understand and grasp that deepness right away.
Preaching to the choir, brother. Yeah.
The next one is with Brian's truck, End Corporate Socialism. You were telling me stories about the kids.
Oh yeah, man. They're just big. They're just constantly creating imagery that's perfect for the Sanders campaign. One night I went over and the girl was out on the field, with her little bicycle and her little helmet, and she's trying to learn to ride the bike without the training wheels, and the sun's going down. It's just beautiful out, And there's pictures of them helping paint some of the signs, and over above Bernie's ear on this image, there's the little shapes for his hair. And the sign we showed earlier back in Iowa, the girl that lived there, when she saw that, she thought it was a heart, and it just was random shape. So I'm like, all right, I made it into a heart, and then so I let her paint it. And her folks were taking pictures of that, and they thought that was the coolest thing. And so I got pictures of these girls doing the same thing, you know, off of Highway 20 here in Oregon, instead of back in Iowa, doing the same, painting that heart, man. Yeah. And it just, you know, you can read whatever you like into it about, you know, Bernie Sanders got heart and the kids love him, and, you know, they're too young to vote, but, you know, the youth are down with Bernie and all that. Yeah, so
we're nurturing the next generation of activists.
So, oh yeah, they're totally, yeah, they sing Bernie, and oh yeah, they're totally, oh, yeah. I've seen some of their drawings from school. Their dad shows me, and yeah, they're wanting to close the concentration camps.
The next slide is for an event coming up. What's that project?
Let's see.
July 20th.
Yeah.
Bernie is coming.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is not incompleted flyer or whatever, but this is for this coming Saturday down in the Eugene area for installing signs. And we talked about that yesterday at the meeting down in Eugene, and then we'll be having information up. If anyone knows Angelique down in Eugene, she'll kind of be helping out on that. We're put together sort of like itinerary or where we'll be and all, and then we're going to wind up at Angelique's place at the end of the day, have a potluck, hang out, get everybody organized, bring your friends, have a good time, typical Bernie kind of stuff. Yeah. So, and that's an old image from 15 and 16 with the Paul Revere thing. Yeah.
I'm just going to hang on.
Go ahead, John.
Oz, thank you for the $5 donation. And he says, hey, Brian, can we get you to come up to Washington State? And the Lou, which I got to tell you, Oz, the land of Oz with an acronym of the Lou really isn't going to fly. That's awesome. But to build art session up there, they've got an amazing facility up in Washington, Oz does, and he could get volunteers up there, and we'd love to ship you up there to work with him. Would you go?
Oh yeah. I've talked to people in Washington State already about doing events. Probably be into September. There's a lot going on here through the end of this month and even into August. And then there's a camping trip deal, and we'll be talking about that next Saturday on the Eugene deal and at the potluck and all. But there's a camping trip in Washington that the Orca, the Corvallis group, has been talking about. Yeah, that looks familiar, man.
Yes, we'll be talking about how you can fund Brian's travel, because it costs money to do all of this stuff. So we'll get to that at the end of the show. The next couple of slides are about an event that was yesterday. Tell us about this, Brian.
Yeah, this is the Friday night Lights for Liberty. Yeah. And I'd made a very similar image to this that we used for buttons with the Rural Organizing Project. And what she said, yeah. I like, my image is I use as few words as possible. When you catch me in person like this, I just never shut up. So it's kind of a contradiction there, but I think what she said pretty much covers it there. And we always throw in the American flag. So if somebody wants to be disrespectful, it's like, dude, that's the flag, man. So it was fun. It was better as it got darker and the lights lit up more and all. And yeah, people just gravitated towards it. We was behind where the actual event was, right next to the street, so you could see it driving by. Yesterday morning was the farmer's market next block over, so hopefully more people saw that.
Which town was this in?
Oh, and this is in Albany.
Okay.
Yeah, Albany.
Oh, this is my town.
Yeah, man, it was awesome to have a cool event like that in Albany. The Albany people are great. They're awesome organizers, but a lot of the time, we go elsewhere. We go to Corvallis, we go to Salem, we go to Eugene, or whatever. Yeah. So it's cool. People came from those areas here because we had they had the event here in Albany.
Yeah, Bernie won 35 of the 36 counties in 2016 in the primary. And the one county he lost by one vote. So really he swept the state.
Yeah.
And so the urbanites keep thinking that they're the center of the progressive universe, but actually there's people all over Oregon, and we saw that during the parades. People were a little bit hesitant about going through rural Oregon towns with Bernie signs, but they would get out there and find out that there's a huge support that's not being reflected in the media for Bernie Sanders.
Oh, exactly.
I just got to say, this one is cracking me up here. Brian, we got to get some of your signs digitalized so that we can change them for memes. This one updated for 2020. I know this is a 2020, but it should say your grandkids will exist. All you got to do is cross out the thing, exist.
Yeah,
right?
You can have grandkids. Yeah, thanks, Bernie. Yeah. That's
a great sign.
Yeah. Well, what was really funny is, if you guys know Bert, you know Bert from Albany.
Yeah,
He was
no Bert.
with the big project. Yeah. Well, he sent me an email while I was working on this one, and he refers to himself as the world's oldest millennial, and he says he's doing this for his grandkids, and I'm like, dude, I'm totally painting a sign about your grandkids. Well, thank you. As you send me an email telling me you're doing it for your. And again, it's like some of these other things I've told you. This kind of stuff happens, when I met Matt and his family, and I'm like, first thing I got to tell you, man, is just get ready, because crazy stuff happens, man. You're going to meet killer people. You're going to get to go awesome places, and just amazing coincidental stuff's going to happen.
Well, speaking of killer people, the next slide is the one that we attempted to install last week up here in Clatsop County, which, what happened was a little surprising, because this was one of the few rural blue counties in the entire state that did not vote for Trump in 2016, which is probably what is feeding their fury. Matt brought up two signs from Albany that they had painted down there, and we were going to install them on locations here in Clatsop County in the northwest corner of the state. And there were two signs. The nicer sign, which had nothing, no button pushing issues, said "Rebuild America" and Bernie. It doesn't say vote for Bernie. It doesn't say anything. So it's barely even a political sign. And I thought that would be a nice way to start with the signs in Clatsop County. The other one, I believe, says "The more you learn, the more you burn," which could trigger some people.
You need to replace it with a pitchfork one now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The pitchfork's on.
Yeah.
We found this awesome location on Highway 101 between Seaside and Astoria. And Matt drove up from Albany, which probably took him a couple of hours to get here. And we went out to the property, and we installed this around 3:00 on Monday. And this was the last time I saw it, was when this picture was taken. And so we went away. Oh, well, then we brought the other sign up to my house, which we still have, trying to find a home for it. We got a call from the landowner that by 8 a.m. the next morning, this sign had been ripped from the posts and had disappeared. And he could tell that it had actually been ripped from the post, but the way it was removed. And they hauled it off to somewhere. So he thinks it's a local conservative that lives nearby that did it, but we actually do not know who stole the sign. But it just felt so, just so un-American to have a sign like that ripped down. This is more than just going over to someone's yard and taking a 1.5 by 2 foot sign out.
Yeah.
This is removing a sign that is 4 feet by 8 feet and was attached to these posts with screws. So it took a lot of effort to remove this.
And it's on private property, right?
And it's on private property.
Right. So, there's that.
Trespassing on private property, destruction of private property, the legal code right there automatically come to mind. And again, what we're trying to do is present like somebody took the time and effort and all to create this sign. It's not just a little yard sign, like, the little metal wicket, sticking in the yard that anybody can come along and pick up. It took some effort to yank that thing off there, which I'm like, maybe it was Sasquatch, because it takes some strength to get that thing off.
Sasquatch's cousin.
Yeah, yeah. But when I'll just go into this real quick. But when Larry asked me about this, is like, no, this is actually not the first time a sign has been stolen. And there's a campground out south of Bend, and she had a sign there. The sign was stolen. What the thieves were not clever enough to realize is that there was a security camera, like taking pictures of them and moved the sign. And when they were approached by the law enforcement community in their area, they say, "Oh yeah, it flew out of the truck. We don't know what happened to it, whatever." So they estimated the value of it at $350. So for restitution, these individuals ponied up the $350 rather than sit in the pen for a few days or whatever. And that money helped fund the first Bernie stock. So let the word go forth. You do something like this, we're going to fundraise off of it. We're going to use the money to support causes that you oppose. If you're in the area, keep an eye on those 2 empty posts, because soon we'll be back and there will be like 3 signs there instead of just 1. So thank you for helping us out. The gal in the campground, we showed up and painted. We stayed on site for 2 or 3 days and painted more signs for her place, and they're golden because they're already like the law enforcement community something's happening, and there's precedent set and all. And so if something happens to you, we're asking $27. Larry will get into that in a minute, for donating for the sign or whatever. We'll take whatever you want to give, of course. But we value the signs at $350. So if somebody does do something to it, that's just how that works. So yeah, you mess around, it's going to come back at you. Yeah. And and it's not a violent thing or whatever. We're just going to continue doing what we're doing. And we're going to do it in a bigger, larger way.
Yeah, that we reported it to the police, so they know about it. And there's a police record of this being stolen. And then we attempted to get a press release published in the local newspaper, but their response was, destruction of a political sign is not news, because it happens all the time. So they didn't run the story. But we got the story out on Facebook. Fortunately, we have alternative media these days. So the truth can be told.
I just want to say that the media list that I sent it out to, which was over 200 media entities in Oregon, Washington, 58 of them actually opened that email, and at least 20 of them clicked through to the site. So we did have that effect on it. Right.
Cool.
So,
and as Brian was saying, if the owner is up for it, and I think he will be, because he's just as crazy as the rest of us, we're going to replace this sign with 3 signs. And then if they want to take those signs out, we will come back with 10 signs, and just keep going that way. So if you would like to help us fund this, because as Brian says, it doesn't cost $350 because so much of the labor is donated, but these signs do cost money, and it does cost money to transport them around. We would appreciate your donation.
Yeah.
And this last image is of which Brian did for me. We were hoping to have an image that was specific to Oregon, and so this is what he came up with, and it was absolutely perfect. So thank you, Brian.
No, thank you, sir. And that's just a rip. There's a sign similar to that from Iowa that Larry saw the picture of and was like, "Hey, can you make like an Oregon version of that?" And like, I just like jammed through it, man. I was like an hour later or something. I'm like, "Here, dude." So whatever Larry wants, man, I'm totally on it.
So the next slide, there's 4 things that you can easily do. If you are from Oregon, would you do the first 2? Please sign up at berniesanders.com so they can identify you as an activist and a supporter of Bernie Sanders and get you pulled into the campaign. And then we would also like for you to go to OregonForBernie.org and sign up there as well. We need representation in every county in the state, and we need to know how to reach you because there's going to be lots of organizing activities coming up over the next couple of months. If you would, please go and make a contribution at OregonForBernie.org, and we'll go through some slides showing you how to do that. We encourage you to wear Bernie Sanders branded apparel between now and November. There's stuff from the Bernie Sanders website itself, and then there's lots of artists just like Brian that are making similar materials that you can wear. And what we need to do, because really all campaigns are about, is getting names out there, and so that they're impressed upon people's minds, and when they go into the ballot booth to vote, that they gravitate towards the name that we want, which is Bernie Sanders. So going to the Get Involved signs, this is what the website looks like for Oregon for Bernie. And these are your opportunities to donate. If you go to the next slide, it shows specifically. So the black boxes are buttons. So if you just click on the button, they will take you to the GoFundMe sites. We have one for donations for bumper stickers. So what we would like to do is print up 10,000 bumper stickers and then have them distributed through the various Sanders support groups across the state of Oregon. And we do take out-of-state money. We have no problem with that. We are also funding signs. So there are two buttons for signs. One button is if you have a location on a major highway or road in Oregon that gets a lot of traffic, and you would like to put up a Bernie Sanders sign, please click on the request a sign button, and we will do our best to get one made for you. And of course, we have to have money to buy the materials. As Brian said earlier, it costs $27 to buy the materials for one sign. We need 3 donations now for the replacement signs for our site here in Clatsop County, and then we'll probably need $270 for 10 signs at some point in the future. So click on the donate button, and we would be really appreciative if you would send that to us. And then the third opportunity, it's very expensive to send for delegates to travel to the convention. We estimate Oregon will be sending around 30 delegates, and we do not want money to be a barrier to people going to the convention and representing Bernie Sanders. And so because there's such a short time frame between the selection of our delegates in Oregon and the convention itself, which is less than a month, we have no time for people to go out and do fundraising after they've been elected. So we're getting ahead of the game, excuse me, and are taking donations now so that we will have the money available to send the people that get elected.
Larry, there's one question before
yes,
you.
Betsy.
For Brian, it's more general, and it's from Dennis from Germany. Brian, what do you think about artists in the U.S. in general? And he qualifies that to say, I think they are weak and do not challenge the status quo like they used to do.
Yeah, I'm totally down with. I think that's one of the major features of art is to question and challenge. It doesn't hurt to provide solutions, as well as complain about things. But the people I know, and I grew up in Northern California, like North Bay areas or whatever, and the people I know down there are activist types, and we've kind of always had sort of our responsibility to promote stuff that needs to be tended to, or issues, things that you might not be aware of, or something like that. In general, I can't speak to the entire entire country, but the people I have met within my travels, obviously they're Bernie fans, so they're of a similar mind to what we're doing, and a lot of the stuff that they create is like that. I do a bunch of stuff too that's not the Bernie stuff, and all that as well. So I apologize, I'm not comfortable for speaking for the entire artistic community of the country.
Any other questions, Betsy?
No, I think you answered the one. There was one about vandalism, but I think you covered those.
Do we have it? Yeah. The next slide shows where we have links to buy Bernie products. We have a couple of links. We have one link to Two Chicks Conspiracy that do this beautiful multicolored Bernie t-shirt on black that you can get from them. We have a line of Bernie apparel that is on the Uphill Media website. Bernie says, it says, not, what does it say?
Is it not me?
Not me, us.
Bernie says, not me. Not me, us. Yes, that's I really want to thank Hank's Fingers. He did that. Oh, thank you, Suzanne O'Shea, for a $27 donation right now. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
It's all volunteer-driven media here, and these are just some of the designs that were created by individual Hank's Fingers, who I believe is from Australia. Hank's, let me know. I'm not familiar. We have an Australian in our chat right now. Thank you for joining us here. The Solitary Reaper. Anyway, we've got volunteers from all around the world. Germany, France, Luxembourg, and Australia. And so this is just some of the designs we created and some of the ways you can support us. And some of the money gets back to us. Go ahead, Larry.
Yes, everyone's rooting for America.
Yes.
Save us.
Can I jump in real quick? Just like 10 seconds? Yeah, being in Des Moines, man, I met people from all over the world that came to the state office, early on in November, December of 15, January of 16, France, Germany, England, Scotland, Brazil, Panama, Chinese students who had a break from school, flew, got an Uber and asked the Uber driver, can you take us to the Bernie Sanders office? A girl that just got her law degree in Greece came over in like January. Literally people from all over the world. Canadians would just like drive down for the weekend to like go knock on doors in January in Iowa. And they were not cold because they're from Saskatchewan and Manitoba, right? But literally all over the world, people are like, hey, we need you guys to like kind of have it together, so please support Bernie. Yeah,
So the links are at OregonForBernie.org. The products on the left are by Uphill Media, and you get to choose the colors of the different pieces of apparel. So there's a number of colors that you can choose from, so you can actually customize it to whatever you'd like. The items on the right are from the Bernie Sanders campaign. In addition to apparel, they have starter kits, which are really cool. So they have bumper stickers and window signs and buttons, and you can get those. And they have small ones and they have like medium ones. So they're not really that expensive. So we encourage you to go out and organize and throw your own parties and start getting the products out. Brian, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. This has been very cool.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Again, I told Larry I'm going to keep thanking him until he tells me to stop, and then I'll probably do it a few times after that anyways. Same goes for John and for all that you guys are doing, and you're making my job much easier. Anybody out there listening, hopefully we'll see you along the trail somewhere. I'll just show real quick. This is my dog, Iggy, in front of the Bernie bus in Des Moines. I have a great story about him barking at Hillary Clinton. So if you run into me, please ask me. I will tell you this awesome story. Thank you guys very, very much. I will shut up now and let you.
No. I want you to show everybody the picture of Mark Gamba, who's running here in Oregon, and he's running against Kurt Schrader, who's basically Republican. And Mark is awesome, and Mark got endorsed by Blue America, and Brian is doing some volunteer work with Mark, and this is a.
Hey, this is for you, John. This is that Raider logo.
Down, no Raiders. Yeah. I grew up with the Denver Broncos with Elway.
I was in Denver when the Broncos won the Super Bowl, thanks to Bernie.
Thanks to Bernie.
Thanks to Bernie, I was there for that. Yeah, and I'm like, I ain't displaying none of the Raider stuff, brother.
No, you can't do that. You'd be killed in Colorado.
No. We're trying to get people to support Bernie and not like, Raider.
Right. Hey, don't put it. But all right, show me that Gamba. That was awesome.
Sorry, man.
He's trying to find it. It's my bad. I put you on the spot.
No worries. Yeah, and if you know Mark Gamba, anyone on the staff, whatever, tell him the hat, dude. The hat is totally happening.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know what his staff is saying. Keep the hat on Mark Gamba. That should be a hashtag.
He's got a winter. Keep Mark's hat. One. There's a summer one. Yeah, it's iconic. That's your gig, Mark. Right there, dude. Come on.
Artwork for the revolution. That's fantastic.
It ain't a revolution without art, man. And then afterwards we dance.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us, Brian.
Hey, thanks again, you guys. You're great.
Bye, Brian.
See you soon.
Hey, Larry, there's a question about, is there a place, a P.O. box where someone can send a donation? GoFundMe doesn't work for me, by Brent McKinney. Maybe not for others. Is there a place somebody can mail something? Cash, check, money order?
Yes. And we'll put it in the chat window after the show. So hang on, and we will give you an email address to send it to. Actually, why don't you, if you were interested in mailing something in, write to larry@uphillmedia.org, and that message will come to me, and I will send back the address at which you can send it. That would be the easiest way to do it.
Larry@uphillmedia.org, and hey, Larry, maybe we need to make a slide with an address in case people just want to send money in that way.
I know so few people use checks anymore that it's almost an afterthought, and so we've had to start using Venmo and all kinds of creative ways to accommodate how people want to chip in money.
But Brett, we will take your money in whatever form it is.
We will figure out a way.
Doesn't matter what it is. Clamshells, that's fine. We'll take it.
If you saw the slide earlier, if we could just get 100 donations of $20, we could finish off the fundraising for the bumper stickers and get those all over Oregon. We use the Bernie Sanders funding model of lots of people giving small amounts, not a few people giving large amounts.
I just want to say these are really gorgeous stickers, and they're going to stand out like artwork does compared to the normal Bernie ones that you can get. All right, so we should really fund these and get them out of the way.
Upcoming shows, yes, we will do a parliamentarytalk.org. We're just waiting for one or two things to happen before we launch the show.
Waiting for a new chair, Larry. That's what we're waiting for. And then we could totally do this show. I don't believe you anymore.
But this is going to be a really fun show. We want to do for parliamentary procedure what the Car Talk does for car repair. If you remember Click and Clack, the Tappet Brothers on NPR. So what we want to do is take situations that people encounter, and you might not realize it, but you do encounter them in your life. So we had a neighborhood association in Portland wanting to elect new officers. They met, they didn't have a quorum. Then the officers that were from the previous administration didn't want to hold another meeting so that they could follow through with electing officers. And the neighborhood association members were very frustrated about what to do next. And so these are the kinds of problems that we would like to talk through. What do you have in terms of bylaws? What are the rules governing your organization? What does parliamentary procedure say? And how can you force it so that democracy then reigns again in your organization? So you can submit your question. So if you have a situation like this in your own life with your homeowners association or with your political party or whatever you have, submit your question, and we will then discuss possible solutions for that on the air with my co-hosts and myself. If you would like to subscribe to these to notices for these live streams, click on the subscribe button. We will do that just like this show. So there will be an opportunity for people to watch the live show and ask questions, but then they can also watch the recorded versions later. So if we have a special on homeowners associations, we can archive it and then you can bring them up. And then if you'd like to actually study parliamentary procedure, and we're getting a lot of interest in this in Oregon, you can join a virtual study group that's organized within the National Association of Parliamentarians, and we can you can join us. We can talk about various subject matters within parliamentary procedure, and actually get you on the track to becoming either a member of the National Association of Parliamentarians or one of the higher levels of achievement, like becoming a registered parliamentarian. We would love to have you. We're actually the fastest growing group in Oregon at this point, and we have probably twice as many members as any of the groups that meet physically. And so we would love to have you join us. And our next meeting is actually tomorrow on Monday evening.
I just want to jump in and say that this is what Larry's been working on for more than 2 years, and this is how you take power in the Democratic Party or in any political party, by using the rules. And parliamentary procedure is the Jedi This is the freaking force of democracy, and so we're building an army of Jedi that know how to use these rules and take power. This is how the chair got censored. This is how the people in the SEC are learning what their fucking bylaws are that they're supposed to follow. This is Larry's work, not just Larry's, but Betsy's and everybody in Progressive Oregon's work, and I want to thank you all for getting here. It gets no recognition. MSM won't touch this or talk about it, and the Democratic Party at the top will deny it. But we are taking over the party simply by learning the rules. So thank you, Larry.
And we like rules because we can use rules to make change as opposed to grabbing our gun, which is what the rest of the world tends to do. So it's how we work together. That's it for tonight, for today's show, John. Thank you for hosting again.
Yeah, well, thank you. Everybody, if you can, drop a few bucks to donate at uphillmedia.org. Could always use you to help keep the lights on. You guys are wonderful in your donations, and I just had to throw that plug in there. So.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
And we're doing that.
We're gonna get out of here with the trailer that I ran yesterday. It's for The Reluctant Radical. I'm talking to Ken Ward next Friday. We've got a We the People coming up too, and that's earlier in the week. Dan Whitfield is running for Arkansas Senate. But on Friday at 7 p.m., I've got a special conversation with Ken Ward, and Ken is another direct action activist. He's one of the 5 people that actually shut down the pipeline and literally physically shut down the oil pipeline, and that takes serious courage. And so as far as I'm concerned, Ken's a real life action hero for climate, and I'm really excited to talk to him about his movie, what he did. There's a documentary that we're going to watch trailer for right now, what he's doing next, because he works with XR Portland, right? And since then, he's done a ton of things. He's been on railroad tracks. They put gardens up, blocking trains from going to different places. And he's just an amazing human being. Looking forward to talking to him about that and about HB 2020, the, in my opinion, worthless climate bill, and what he thinks is going on there. Ken's very outspoken on Facebook. If you don't follow him, you should find him there. Join me for that conversation. Please share this, because it's I think this is important to hear from this guy about direct action and how we can really work more to get Oregon, that's supposed to be a progressive state, to actually make some progressive climate legislation, because they don't. So join us for that. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate you all. And here we go.
I was going, hey, wait a minute, the world's in collapse here, and we're not doing anything about it. And people are like, oh, yeah, that's a problem. And there was a sense of utter disconnected in realities.
Climate change is just dealt with as if it was any other discrete environmental issue. For years, we said we can solve this if everyone would just put the right light bulbs and buy a Prius.
Liven your morning up, maybe.
What we really needed to be doing was, from the very beginning, raising hell.
All right, under arrest.
8 hours of community service, and then they'll dismiss, as if they had never been filed, the charges. In theory, I could just show up and do this every 2 weeks or so if I wanted. Woke up at 2:30 in the morning thinking, why am I doing this? Nobody's gonna care, nobody's gonna notice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Coast Guard boats. If you've done all the legal available methods and they don't work, then the only thing that you have left is to put your body in the way.
I feel a large amount of pride for the stuff my dad does, because save the world and all that.
The odds are vanishingly small, but that's no excuse for not figuring out what to do next, so.
One man can't do this.
He's speaking to him.
Life is hard for zealots. Some of my heroes in history were zealots. The suffragettes, the abolitionists.
Makes him hard to love, but it also makes him worth loving, I guess.
He's dedicated, he's articulate, he's passionate, and he's guilty.
I'm now showing Exhibit 18 to the jury.
We need moral clarity. We need sides to be drawn. Either you're for burning fossil fuels and ending the world, or you're against it. Which is it?